loved someone deeply while knowing you had to protect yourself from them? Welcome to It's Both, the podcast about living in the tension and navigating life's gray areas and messy moments. I'm your host, Nikki P, a therapist turned storyteller. And in today's episode, I sit down with Reggie D. He is an author, speaker, and mental health advocate whose work lives at the intersection of trauma recovery and resilience. In this conversation, we unpack the bothness inside of healing, how love and anger can coexist, why reframing our words rewires our brains, and what it looks like to feel emotions in the body, not just think about them. Reggie shares his personal stories of grief, growth, and getting unstuck, plus a simple visual that will change how you hold multiple truths in any relationship. So if you've ever felt pulled in two directions, this episode will meet you right in that gray area and offer grounded ways to move forward. So let's jump in. Welcome, Reggie. So good to have you.
I'm so glad to be here, Nikki. Thank you for having me.
Before we jump in, I would love it if you could just share with me and all of our listeners, who is Reggie? Tell us a little bit about Reggie.
Ooh, I am human first. I always like to start with that because some of the other things that I made list come off as, I don't know, to what people may see is just different. But I am human first. I think one of the things that I identify with most is I serve and I give back. And so much of my life has been about serving people from different walks of life. Started professionally in finance and then has transitioned into mental health advocacy and resilience building work and self-love work. I am an author. I am a survivor of trauma and lots of trauma. And that's a big part of my story. And I'm sure we'll touch on some of that later. I'm a thriver. And I'm excited to be here and share part of my story with your audience and the world. So yeah, that's a little bit.
That's so great. And I just love the language you use, because even as you talk about the work you do in mental health advocacy and hearing just the language, I think language is so important, and the words we use day in and day out about ourselves, like, it makes a difference. And
It
so
does.
hearing you say things like, I'm a thriver, I just love that, because I think it's a great example of embodying this mindset shift I think that a lot of us are wanting to go through or in the process of.
It's so much like the language is so important. And I talk about language a lot because we have a very, like, if you just rip back like the cliches and the euphemisms or the ways that we talk, you listen to it. It's a lot of violent conversations that we have. It's a lot of weird metaphors that we use. And, like, I crushed it, I killed it, I dominated it. Like, and all of that is, and the same with if you've gone through some things, I'm a victim, which is very valid for anyone who has experienced something. But I think on the same token, reframing, I do a lot of reframing. Reframing is a way to wire your brain in a way of that resilience, of growth, of strength, and knowing that you have overcome and lived through and made it through your hardest days if you're listening to this right now.
Oh man, I have so many questions. I don't want to derail us, but I do quickly want to know, because I just think you hit on something really amazing. When you talk about, well, first of all, I had never thought about the fact that we use that type of language so often. Like, I killed it, I crushed it. I think the closest I've come to that is, like, previously one of my roles was working in crisis counseling. And so working with a lot of youth who were suicidal, homicidal. And that was kind of the first time I was like, wow, we are talking to people thinking about truly killing themselves, and then in the next minute saying, like, I killed it. So I have thought about that one specific one, but I think bringing that up in terms of, like, as a culture, we do use language that is so aggressive, and I think that makes a difference. I think that seeps in.
One that just came up for me was trigger warning. Like, just like I would, cause I was putting a warning on one of my podcasts, one of the videos.
Yeah.
And the reason I was doing it was because of gun violence that was in the episode. And it's like, I'm using trigger warning, and it's just like, okay, we could content warning. So I changed it to content warning. It still communicates that there's something to look out for without having, the reminder of a gun. And so yeah, it's we got a lot of language to change.
For sure. Well, before we jump in, the last thing I was going to ask you is you talk about mental health advocacy. Could you briefly just talk a little bit about like how does that look for you and how are you doing that kind of work?
Yeah, so that started with my own personal journey. Back in 2019, mental health became real for me. I don't even know if people were talking about it as much as even now that they're talking
Mm-hmm.
about it, but like I just experienced the effects of my trauma, the effects of anxiety that I never knew was possible, grief and depression. And it led me to a very dark place mentally. I could barely function when, no, I take that back. I was a functioning depressed individual during that time. And but my mind and my thoughts were just all over the place and I couldn't really focus in the way that I had been. And that ended in a very severe anxiety attack one night on the floor. And I woke up and I went to sleep and woke up and needed to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sought help for myself. I went to my primary care doctor. I went to a grief counselor. I went to a therapist, and then so many other avenues since then. And I got to feel what healing started to feel like. And I experienced that for myself and so much awareness, so many things that I hadn't known about myself and about the mind and about people. And that I shared that. I shared that with other individuals and got to see that there were similar experiences, similar stories, similar things that are
Mm-hmm.
impacting people
Yeah.
that are keeping people in a state of suffering. And it may be conscious suffering, may be subconscious or unconscious, but there are a lot of folks suffering because of what their mind is doing. And so I felt that it was the right thing to do. I feel like it's inhumane to not allow someone to heal mentally, to go through a healing process. If they were physically wounded in a way and you just denied them access to
Mm-hmm.
treatment, that is torture.
Yeah.
And we do that with mental health, and I just couldn't sit with that. And so I wrote my book first, Perseverance Through Severe Dysfunction, PTSD, where again, reframing
Mm-hmm.
post traumatic stress disorder around perseverance. And that opened up the platform to speak. And so I speak all over the country, some different places in the world of around mental health advocacy, around trauma recovery, resilience, wellness, and well being. And also partner with a lot of organizations that are doing similar work. And so it is, yeah, that's what it looks like for me. And I think it's one of those things where it's a life, it's a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's the calling. And like I said earlier, I've been here serving from a finance perspective, and I still do that. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think it intertwines with wellness
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the mind. But just overall well being is the avenue that is universal, that connects us all. And we all need to continuously respect it and treat it for what it's worth.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing and for the work that you do because I love that example that you used where if you were physically hurt, like how you can't deny someone care. And you're so right. It is just as important when you think about your mental, emotional, your soul. I mean,
Mhm.
who you are. And I am a licensed therapist myself. I don't practice currently, but one thing I found in my own journey of counseling is how difficult it is to find quality mental health care that
Yes.
is covered by insurance and or affordable. The therapists that I have needed to see aren't covered by insurance. And I'm
Right.
like, no, I need some real trauma work. I know what I need and I'm well versed in this because this has been my career. So I need like a very specific type of help. And yet I even
Mm.
can't find it's so hard. And so it hurts my heart to think of others, right? As you're talking of like, people can't access these things. Some of the most vulnerable people who need the most support don't have access to that. So I think what you're doing is just so important and necessary. And yeah, thank you.
Definitely. Can I ask you, like,
Yeah.
what is it like going into a therapy session as a therapist when you have experience in that form of therapy? Are you judging them? Are you like critiquing them? Can you drop the guards? How is that like?
That's a great question. Usually am much more of a curious person. I'm working really hard on that. So I don't go in to be judgmental. However,
You're human.
I start to, how do I say this? I have seen a lot of therapists because I will go for a few sessions and I will say very explicitly like, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking for, is this a good fit? And they will say, yes, absolutely. And I'll give my background as a therapist and say this is kind of what I need, and we'll go into it. And when I find that they're not doing what I ask, it's really hard to not be judgmental, because I'll say,
Mhm.
here, I'll give you just a real concrete example. I'll say, I'm really good at not getting to the core, right? I can distract us weekly with the daily stress because my life is crazy and stressful and I need some support. And I'm also, I think, low key avoiding going
Yeah.
back to childhood traumas. So I need you to hold me accountable, please, and like keep me on track. And I've had people that don't do that, and, or maybe have overshared in inappropriate ways. And I've had to go, wait a second. That then my
Mm,
therapist brain goes, no, we can't do this. And then in the moment I go, and this is kind of what led me to be a therapist, because as a child I saw a therapist who I'm like, we should have reported her.
wow.
And so in those moments I don't go in to be judgmental, but I am very quick to say, I'm not going to continue this because you're not adhering to what I asked of you as my therapist. And so it hurts my heart to think about people who aren't as aware of that, who then go with a I don't want to say a bad therapist, but let's say an inexperienced or not as trained professional that don't know to say this isn't okay or this isn't what I need. So
Yeah.
that's a very
Yeah.
long answer, but
No, that's good. And I feel like I've heard so many stories of people, and I'm not a therapist. I've heard so many stories of people who will have a therapist and talk about just some of the ways in which they're misaligned and
mm-hmm.
unfit, and yet they continue to go, and the harm that that does to them in their healing journey. And it puts up just um walls between them and a healthy therapist, or a better
Mm-hmm.
fit therapist later on in life, where it's like, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm gonna do something different.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. It's hard. And the last thing I'll say is one example I had, this was very recently before I'd been seeing a therapist for about a year, and I had the grief of a really close person in my life, my best friend. I've known her for 10 years. She's moving away. I know we're still gonna be in each other's lives, but it's different. And I was really sad and grieving. And the response of the therapist was, don't you see how exclusive you're being? And I was like crying, and I was like, I'm sorry. And I clicked into therapist mode, and I was like, don't get judgmental, like don't get defensive, like be curious. And so I was like, can you tell me more about that? And she was like, well, you're just being very exclusive and not thinking about new friendships. And I was like, I'm so sorry to push back, but I can grieve. We talk
Yeah,
about it's both, right?
yeah,
I'm
it
not talking about not making new friendships. I'm just sad that I'm losing a close friend who I see regularly. And I just
uh,
needed validation in that moment. And to have someone go, aren't you being exclusive? I
mhm.
didn't go back after that session.
I don't blame you. I do not
So
blame you. Wow.
all that to say, your work is so needed because we
Yeah.
need humans like you advocating for this for people.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So thinking about the both, right? The tension of like this and that, not thinking in this and that black and white terms, but experiencing multiple thoughts, feelings, emotions, sometimes even beliefs all in the same moment. Talk to me about how that's shown up for you in your life.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed out in your personal therapy sessions where there is a need to address some of these daily things, but also the need to
Mhm.
address the root of
Yeah.
how we ended up here. Because I feel like I bounce back and forth between that in my therapy sessions. And like today it was 16-year-old and
Mhm.
8-year-old versions of me versus, other days it's like this happened last Tuesday, and
Mhm.
let's get to that. But, I think the both and of the it's both of so many, it's come up so many times in my life. And I think early on, starting with just the feelings that I had with my parents. And
Mhm.
so my mom was very young when she had me. Both of them were young when they had me. My mom was 14, my dad was 18 or 17 or 18.
Mhm.
And I didn't see much of my dad early on. And so there was kind of this fear, this sense of abandonment, this sense of rejection. And he actually went to prison when I was 8. And so like there was literal
Mhm.
abandonment. And I had this this overwhelming desire to have him in my life, to emulate him, to be just like that man. But
Yeah.
also, there was resentment and hatred and anger, and also this desire to not do the things that you did. So I want to emulate you, but I don't.
Mhm.
And even in that, I was thinking to, family members and people who know my dad or know us, I won't have seen him or known him to do X, Y, and Z, but they're like, you look just like your dad, or you just did that just like your dad. You act just like your dad. And it's like, well, damn. Like, and
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
it comes up. And then I think on my mom's side, it was a little different because she was present. She was physically present, and she was a present voice, but it wasn't always it was a very harsh voice. It was a harsh sense of love, and a the it's both of it was crying out, screaming for the love from her, but not wanting it to come in the way that it did. It's kind of this push and pull that I've seen in relationships as I've grown, and in moments where I'm triggered, it's please don't talk to me. Get away from me. I don't want you to touch me. But
Mhm.
the little boy inside is like, can you please just hold me
Yeah.
and tell me you love me? And so there's been that push and pull, that tug, um, in many of my relationships, both romantic, personal, friendship,
Mhm.
professional,
Yeah.
where it'll come up where those triggers get activated, and it's like, and it starts with those relationships with our original caretakers. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think you touch on something so, I don't want to say universal, but also in some ways, I think a lot of us feel that, right? Like with our parents, maybe not in the same exact way that you did, but I think it's often like something we don't think about, this
Mhm.
tension of bothness with our parents. And yeah, and I'm wondering as a child, like, I would imagine not, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Yeah.
Did you notice or recognize those thoughts and feelings were happening in the same moment or close to each other? Or was it something that you realized later?
I think when it came to my dad, I
Mhm.
probably had a little bit of, probably not at 8, but before I was 12, I would say it would oscillate inside of me.
Mhm.
And so, it'd be this excitement to go see him in prison, but then like this, fuck this, like I ain't trying to be
Mhm.
here
Mhm.
when we got there. And so like that was real, and it was hard because it's conflicting within inside of me. It's like, damn,
Mhm.
do you love him or do you not? Do you And it's like, yes, I do. I've been doing parts work now, IFS.
Mhm.
And so now I recognize like the multiplicity of who I am, who we all
Yeah.
are. And that there is a little part of me that is wants to emulate, wants to love and be there and see that. But then there is a different part of me that is angry, that is mad that we are in this situation, that I had to experience that and grieve that. And so I recognized it with my dad. I don't think I recognized it with my mom until adulthood,
Mm.
honestly. And looking back, our relationship has had tension in it for a really long time. And I think the pull, the societal like pull of like its family added to it. So it's like you have to love her. It's your mom. You have to get, and it's like, but
Yeah.
you don't know what the fuck I'm dealing with right now.
Right, right.
And like when you say it's your mom, like you have this view of of motherly love, of nurturer. And I'm not experiencing that right now. And so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I should love her because it's mom. But no, what moms don't do that. And so
Mhm.
like it's kind of going back and forth. And so yeah, that it probably was subconscious at that time, but like adulthood is like, ooh, I got to see it for what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, and you articulated something so well, which, I ask this a lot to my guests of like, did you recognize it in the moment or later? And I ask that because most of the time we don't recognize it till later, understandably. However, when we do understand it in the midst of it, it does help give language and understanding and helps us process a bit more. But how you described that and articulated that is such a great example, because I'm thinking to childhood and even adults who aren't as aware of this idea of like duality and bothness, right? Our bodies feel the bothness.
Mm-hmm.
Cognitively, we might not be able to give it language, which is, I think, what trips us up. At least I'll
Yep.
speak for myself and those that I've worked with about this. But I think you described it so well. Your body is feeling it.
Yeah.
And then what that does to us, like that feeling inside of our body going, oh my gosh, there's this tension. I don't know what it is. So now I just feel all messed up and like I'm questioning everything. And which then kind of pushes us into that black and white thinking, right? Because you're like, ooh, I shouldn't feel XYZ. So is this wrong? And it's like, it might not be wrong or right. You just are, those parts are feeling both things.
Yep. Yep.
And I think, obviously, as kids, we don't recognize it. We don't have language for it. Oftentimes, adults don't either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the part where, like, again, I'm learning so much about myself in therapy just recently, coming to grips with this fear of death that I've had for a really long time. I was talking about this today in therapy of I had some really significant losses to murder when I was 14 and 17 years old. And when I think, like, if you just sat me down in a room and, like, you know, get the age out of here, get the back pain and the knee pain out of here and ask me how
Mm-hmm.
old I was, like, I feel 16. I'm stuck at
Mm-hmm.
16. Despite
Mm.
all the things that I've done and the life that has been lived and who I am, like, I feel 16. And and on top of that, it's like this fear of death because early on, from what I saw, from what I was being told, from just the environment, I wasn't gonna make it to 25. And I feel like they're like, if I talk to some of my friends and some of my family members from growing up, like, I think that would resonate with a lot of people. It's like,
Yeah.
if you make it that far, like it's a rapper like, if you make it to see 25, you're an OG, Lil
Mm-hmm.
Boost. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, damn, like, to be at to be susceptible to that type of thinking and just that experience in life is difficult. And so I've had this fear of death that has driven me for a really long time. And yeah, I'm coming to grips with that
Mm-hmm.
in therapy, but there's different parts of me that have experienced certain things that create that. Yeah.
It's also, I'm thinking as you're saying that, how many of us, if we were sat in a room and you take away all the external things, right? Like your physical abilities, right? Or I have 3 kids. And I was thinking as you're saying that, I'm like, gosh, I don't know what age. I'd have to think about that and process, but it's definitely not, I'm 34. I definitely don't feel 34. And I've
Right.
talked about this a lot. I'm like, some days I wake up and I go, who gave me kids and made me an adult? Like, I am not an adult,
Yeah.
y'all. I'm like, what is
I
happening?
feel
Right.
that every time I'm in a hotel room and I'm just sitting in there and
Yeah.
I'm like, how in the world, like, the world just trusts me. I feel like Kevin from Home Alone. I'm
Yes.
just
Yes.
like, I'm just living life. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. But it's interesting though. It probably, I would imagine, like what I know about trauma and what that does to your nervous system, your body, your beliefs, your mind. When you experience various forms of trauma or hurt or grief or whatever loss or experience that is for you, you do kind of get stuck
Yeah.
around that age, whatever age it is, even if you didn't experience it till you were in your 30s, hypothetically, right? Like you do get a little stuck if you don't get support for that. And so, yeah, that's just I think, a really helpful tool, I think, for
Hmm.
anybody to be able to use.
Yeah. Yeah. I getting stuck, like, I went to Onsite, which is, Onsite retreats and workshops. They do trauma retreats and wellness retreats, and the thing that drew me to the particular program, like, all throughout it was get unstuck, 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 and I was like, "They're talking to me," like, literally. This was back in 2022, and at that moment, like, I that was part of the start of my healing journey, and I was so stuck in grief and in just, like, all like, now I'm the awareness of it all, it's, like, all in my
Hmm.
face, and I'm like, "Whoa," and now I'm like, I feel like I'm even lower than I was before I walked into therapy, and it's like, "Oh, shit," like, but
Mm.
going, it literally helped to unblock so much. And I feel like and the same thing can happen in your therapy sessions or
Mhm.
talking with a professional, but it just like accelerated it and put it on steroids. And I was really like open to like what it felt like to just wiggle some of that unstuckness out.
Mhm.
And oh my God, like it's just like it's incremental and it's gradual, but
Mhm.
it definitely helped.
Yeah. And I think to your point, there are so many other ways like therapy. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent of therapy. And yet there's so many other things that you can pair with that or do like a retreat or group work or yoga or breath work or meditation,
Mhm.
whatever it might be. Like there's all these tools in your tool belt, so to speak, that accelerate or potentially hinder,
Yeah.
but that can help us kind of to your language get unstuck
Yeah.
that do different things for our different parts.
Yeah. I think like even just saying the term therapy, like that is a blanket term for a lot of different things. Like
Yeah,
there's massage therapy, there is
which I get
IFS work.
behind.
Yeah, yeah, like massage and acupuncture and different types of body therapy, like that helps. Physical therapy,
Mhm,
and but then you also have different modalities within a therapy session. So you have a person working with EMDR, you have a person
mhm,
working with IFS, you have a person working with all different types of things and
mhm,
play therapy. It's like so even in that, like you can explore a lot of different things. And for me and somebody who has experienced similar types of trauma, like it gets stuck in the body. And like you were
mhm.
saying earlier, like the body is so wise. The body keeps the score. That's probably on my shelf back there.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, it does. And so like I think about people who will complain about headaches. Like I get headaches all the time and I just don't know why. And then that's it, right? And you take medicine to cover it up and you just don't know why. Or my stomach ache or this or that, or I feel this
Do you
weird
know me,
thing.
Reggie? Okay,
And
that
it's
is
like
me with headaches.
yeah, it's like it's not just random, like it's
Yeah,
connected to something
yeah.
and the deep self-inquiry work helps you get to that point and getting it out of the body. Like I had to beat the hell out of some couches and pillows while I was there.
Mhm.
I had to be pulled off of one of my other, fellow people that were there and not in a I don't even know. Like I wasn't hurting them or anything, but
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
could have. I could have
yeah.
just because of where it took me. And so, yeah, but it took really getting into my body to unlock some of the things that I needed to be unstuck.
Did you find for you, because this is one thing I've experienced and I'm still working through it, very much so. I'm really good at disconnecting from my body, really good at being cognitive, right? In my head. I know what I'm feeling. I know why. I know the trigger. I know all the therapeutic things. And yet, because of what I've been through, and I talk about this in some episodes, I stop it here
Yep.
and I don't let my body feel it so I can survive. And
Yep.
that's what I've been programmed to do.
Yep.
But the last 10 years of my life have been the most stable I've ever had in my life. And so I've really been at war with that, going like, there is no trauma, there is no crisis.
Mhm.
What do I
Mhm.
do now? Like I
Mhm.
can't, it's all kind of coming up, right? And so I'm doing that work of integrating or reconnecting and realizing I need to feel. And so I'm curious for you, having obviously our stories are different, but did you have trouble or do you still have trouble connecting to your body and healing through your body?
Yeah. I was just in a session with somebody and we are talking about different needs. The animal needs that we
Mm-hmm.
have, food, water, shelter, the child needs, and then our higher self. And then those animal needs, like that is where I feel like that dissociation has happened for me
Mm-hmm.
easily.
Mm-hmm.
Where one of my coping mechanisms was this workaholic tendency to
Mm-hmm.
just do, and perform. And I will totally not, like, I won't feel hunger or I
Mm.
won't feel sleepy and I could just go. And in those moments now, having the awareness and understanding, like I have to either set alarms or
Yeah.
connect back to myself. So, like, have a moment of meditation or pause so that I can remind myself it is whatever o'clock and you haven't had a sip of water, you haven't gotten up, you haven't eaten anything. And that is a reminder for me when I'm neglecting those animal needs. But then one thing that I realized just this, no, what year? Yeah, earlier this year, for the first time since I was ooh for the first time since I was a child, I felt sadness in the pit of my stomach.
Hmm.
Like I have suppressed that emotion so much to
Yeah.
where I didn't even know what it felt like in my body. You could show the body charts and show the scans of like, this is what it feels like. This is where it's hot. This is where it's cold. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't feel like you ask me what I'm feeling every time my therapist, I'm like, it's in my chest and it's in my fist, like
Mhm.
anger. Like that's what I feel when you ask me about any
Mhm.
of these emotions or in my jaws. But for the first time, I remember I was sad and I was going to the gym and I just got this like pain in my stomach. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God. And I cried and it was like a joyful cry because I'm like, I can feel I'm connected to my body in a way. And so, yeah, it's definitely been something that has impacted me a lot. And
Yeah.
I think I've been practicing yoga since 14, 15 time frame. And before I even knew what it was doing for me from like a healing standpoint, I had started to see some differences in just being
Mhm.
more embodied, and that has helped tremendously. Meditation and just sitting with what my body feels and where I am, that has helped a lot with being able to connect back to my body and get out of the logic of it all. But it's still very difficult at times.
I want to pause here for a second because I know some of you listening are going to relate to this next part. You've built a good life. You're showing up for everyone else, kids, partner, work, friends, and you've done all the right things to take care of yourself. The journaling, the workouts, the books, and yet you're still tired, still anxious, still feeling like you're running on fumes. If that's you, hear me now. You are not failing. You're just stuck in survival mode, and no amount of doing is going to work until your nervous system feels safe. That's exactly what you'll work on inside the Courageous Living group from Janice Holland. She's also known as the trauma teacher. She's a licensed psychotherapist and certified trauma model therapist who helps high-functioning individuals finally find relief. The Courageous Living Group is a 60-day nervous system reset for people who are done overfunctioning, people-pleasing, and holding it all together. This group reset includes 8 weekly group sessions that are live, but are also recorded in case you can't attend the live sessions. You'll have lifetime access to the course portal, including replays, weekly journal prompts with integration practices, somatic healing tools, and a private WhatsApp group chat for support. Because you don't need to do more. You need to feel safe enough to receive the life you've already built. Click the link in the show notes below to get started. And thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable enough to share that, because I think so many of us, and again, talk about the bothness, right? I feel like it's everywhere, but it's like you are drawn to hearing and experiencing that vulnerability. And yet, when it comes time for us to be the one showing and experiencing it, we freeze. Oftentimes,
Mhm.
not everyone, not all the time, but even, I mean, I connect so much to what you're saying because I'm really good at doing that same thing. Like as soon as I get a twitch in my body of that feeling, and for me, it's more so anger, I think, and sadness, but I go, no, like it's
Mhm.
everything in me just shuts it down. Not anymore, but that's historic. That's my go-to, right? And so I'm hearing you talk and I'm like, oh, I know that feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about. And when I'm on the verge of crying in front of people, as a therapist who like, I don't mind. I love like people experiencing their emotions. And yet
Mhm.
when it comes time for me, I literally want to go up and get up and hide in the bathroom and like make it stop. You know, it's still an active thing I have to work through. And for me, I'm thinking too, like male versus female. It's interesting for you. You said it showed up in anger and you had a hard time connecting with sadness. And for me, it was the opposite. It was like, it's okay as a woman to feel sadness. That's a bit more normal. But when I
Yep.
get angry, it scares people because they're like, you shouldn't be angry. Like
Yep.
that's, and I would imagine the reverse for a male, hypothetically, right? Like it's okay for men to be mad, but when a man is sad,
Talk about is both.
mm-hmm,
So this goes like when we were on the call before, I was saying, my background, football
mm-hmm,
player running up and hitting people for fun to
yeah,
yogi. And, this pacifist who like, I don't want to see a bug die. Like I don't want to see
yeah,
anything get hurt. And I think for societally, like from a societal standpoint, anger is more accepted. Like that is like one of the only emotions that was accepted for me as a boy growing up into a man was anger. Like, even being
Yeah.
too happy. It's like, "Why you so damn happy?" Like, can I not be happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
No,
had
I
a
hear you.
kid recently. He's probably 18 right now, and, he asked me, he's like, "Bro, why do you smile in all your pictures?" I was like, "'Cause I'm happy, like, I'm enjoying life." And he's like, "Oh," and, like, I'm just hopeful that that planted a seed in him that
Hmm.
it's okay, like, to
Yeah.
show emotion and show big emotion that isn't just anger. But, like,
Hmm.
it would be for me 0 to 100 on
Yeah.
anger, and every other emotion was muted. And it was, growing and maturing and evolving, recognizing that even in one situation, I can be angry and sad. I can be grateful and a little upset about this situation. Like, all these both ands, these the duality of life,
Hmm.
it all coexists at the same time. And so, yeah, I've really embraced what has been traditionally referred to as the feminine emotions, or anything like that. It's just like, no, my body feels something. I'm human,
Hmm.
emotional. To be human is to be emotional, and so, like, I am that. And
Hmm.
yeah, I embrace it a lot, but anger was one that's like, you made him mad, and it's okay. Like, you
Hmm.
made him mad,
Hmm.
so he's mad, and he's expressing that. But any other one, and there's a negative connotation added to it.
I hate that societal pressure and that expectation that still, even as we move forward, right, with mental health awareness, like we're making moves, and yet for both any gender, really, you have these expectations and you have these pressures that I feel like are just keeping us from being. We are whole. Let me be very clear. We are already whole, but that make us feel less whole and make us feel as though we have to separate.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm even thinking as you were describing that too, of like, have you noticed too, before you kind of were more aware of these things and you physically were feeling the duality without the language for it, did you feel like it kind of made you then make some wrong decisions or question decisions because you weren't aware of the duality? I'm trying to explain this better, but like for me, I'll give an example. Before I realized there was duality, when I was feeling conflicting things in the moment, I thought I knew the right choice, but then because I felt a conflicting feeling, I questioned it.
Mm.
Rather than understanding you can feel both,
Mhm.
and that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it does.
And I'm wondering if you had experienced that.
It does, and I think, yes, to that answer, yes. Anytime that it would be questioned, or anytime it would come up, I would question it. I'm just going off of the anger and sadness, or anger and
Mhm.
any other emotion. I think what was grief showed up like anger. So it
Mm,
defaulted back to what was accepted.
yeah.
And so it would default to, and that was one of the struggles with, like, this love for somebody who's abusing me. Like, it's
Mhm.
like, that's your person, that's your family, that's your whomever, and that supersedes the abuse that you're experiencing. And so, like, what society tells us, or had told me at that time, was the right way to go, was the one that it would default back to, even when there was that conflict inside. So, yeah, I mean, like, all of the heavy emotions turned, like, got alchemized into anger, which is just wild. And now I'm having to do this, like, reversal, because anger rarely shows up, because I had exiled that part. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to accept that part of me, because I didn't like that version of me. But that part is also welcomed.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be the only part anymore, and there
Mhm.
are more parts that can show up. And so I'm rediscovering how anger shows up in a healthy way for me today. But yeah, to your question, like, it definitely would come up and probably default back to the societal norm.
And it's interesting. I just connect so much to what you're saying, and even this idea of loving someone, back to kind of what you were talking about in the beginning. I without going into too much detail, like I have family situation where there was abuse and accusations of abuse, and an ex-husband where it was abusive. And it's funny, I questioned, similarly, my decision to leave my ex-husband, I mean, it took me years, right? Because of that exact thing where, in your brain, you're going, this is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there is love, and love means this.
Yeah.
Love means again, this is my background growing up in Christian culture that I've still very much a believer in God, but it shows up very differently than I did as a kid, right? And at the time in the church I was in, it was very much like, you love and forgive everything and everyone, and divorce is not acceptable. And so thinking about this, as you share about your mom with my ex-husband, it definitely was that tension of like, I can love them and leave. And it took me years to get there, but it does make you question, right? Like you can have love and also go, you can't abuse me anymore. You can't hurt me anymore. I need to love myself, protect myself, and I can still have love for you and set up boundaries that protect me and not be around you. Like those two things can exist, but it's really, really hard, I think, for people. It's like if you have a feeling of love or a thought or an experience that conflicts with whatever else is happening, you do, like you said, you default to that default. You
Yeah.
default to the default.
Wow. Wow. And one thing that came up for me while you were saying that, thank you for sharing that, by the way, was like I read Bell Hooks, like it's
Mm-hmm.
all about love. She
Yeah.
says like abuse and love can't coexist. Like if we drew out a definition for what love is and what love isn't, and if you did the things that love was and did the things, or if you did the things that we said love isn't, then that's not love, and
Mm-hmm.
abuse would fall under that category.
Yeah.
But like when we, we've grown up in abusive households, it gets confusing for a developing brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? You go from I love you to a hit to here's ice cream to go to bed before I slap you to this. And so it's like you're all confused on what healthy love looks
Mm-hmm.
like. And so when that shows up in later relationships, you start flinching or accepting. And it's very difficult, like to unlearn those unhealthy patterns to then relearn
Gosh, yeah.
healthy ones. It's like, damn, like how do you learn how to love when you grew up in something like that? It's difficult. It's
It's
really
hard.
difficult. Yeah.
Forever
Yeah.
work. That's my
Hmm.
forever work.
Yeah. For real. Like, ooh, I just wrote something. It was because I was trying to come to grips with understanding love, like accepting and giving unconditional love. Can I read it?
Please, yeah.
All right. I'm working to expand my capacity to love and be loved unconditionally. This is one of the most difficult parts of recovering from complex trauma. There are times when I feel like I'm giving and receiving love as my soul was meant to, but often there are periods when I unconsciously and sometimes consciously block the mission of my soul.
Mm,
Our soul's mission is to love. To love comes with great risk, but the act of loving and being loved is the greatest reward. To love is to open yourself up to immense pain, yet there is no pleasure as sweet as the one that comes from love. To love requires unimaginable sacrifice, but when we sacrifice, we savor the outcome, knowing it took a heroic effort to realize the possibilities. To love requires you to evolve. Evolution isn't easy, but it reminds us that we are resilient, that we can endure harsh realities and come out stronger in spite of them, that we can learn and grow and heal and resist and rise and thrive, that we can remain alive. To love is to live, free and full of joy. I'm working to expand my capacity to love and be loved unconditionally. I utter these words for accountability. I utter these words to communicate how I'm feeling. I'm to understand from my journey of evolution that communication, both necessary and difficult, is loving. So I remove the filters, the fears, and the facades that keep me small, that make me feel safe. That false sense of safety creates barriers that impede my ability to show up as the most evolved version of myself, the most loving version of myself. No more. I bear my heart, my loving heart, as boldly as I can, knowing that there is a chance that it could shatter. But when I surrender and release the fear of devastating heartbreak, I began to uncover the expansion that I've spent a lifetime seeking. So
Wow.
a lot of duality in that of
Yeah.
it's hard, but it's also rewarding.
Mm.
There's sacrifice, but you savor it. It is one, like we learn a few things at home that we don't really get outside of the house, and it's love, it's money, finances, it's these things that is very difficult to teach. So you experience it in the home and oof, unconditional love. Like what
Mhm.
is that? I'm still
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That is so beautiful. And I think speaks to what everyone needs to hear. I mean, that what you said towards the beginning around, you said something like blocking our soul's mission.
Mhm.
Oh man, I don't think there's a better summary of what we're talking about and what people are unconsciously, and to your point, sometimes consciously doing, which is blocking our soul's mission to love. And I don't think there is a better way to just summarize as humans, right? Like our mission, our soul, our being's mission is to love and to be loved. And these things that come in the way of that hurt our souls.
Mhm. Yeah. It does. It does. And you know, when I think of soul, when I think of the movie first, the Pixar movie,
So good.
love that movie.
Yes, I agree.
But like you look at what a child, like an innocent, pure child
Mhm.
does and how they act and how they love, like absent of neglect and trauma.
Sure.
They're just beautiful, loving creatures, accepting of all. And it like that is where we are meant to be. And we get distracted by all of this other stuff in the world. But if we can come back to that and recognize that we're reflections of each other, that we are all connected to each other and love each other in that way,
Yeah.
then things would be a lot better.
Mhm. Yeah, even as you're talking, thinking I have 3 kids, 6 and under, and one thing I was thinking too earlier is, like, not only did they show us that, but we almost teach them, and I'm working to not do this with my kids, we almost teach them not to feel their bodies.
Mm,
When
yeah,
you talk about instinctively letting yourself feel, and how I'm not saying we let kids hit, don't get me wrong, right? That's part of growth. To your point of when you were feeling anger and you needed to hit a pillow, you needed to hit a couch, like, our bodies as children, that's the first way you respond because you
yeah,
don't have language or cognitive processing in the same way just yet. So, what do? Your body feels it. You scream, you cry, you don't know why. And then, yet, we teach them so much, whether we mean to or not, to stop feeling so
mhm,
large and so big and to stop crying, stop screaming, stop whatever it is because it makes us uncomfortable.
yeah,
And so I just wanted to state that too, because I think there's so much tied into this that, like, because we are scared of vulnerability and experiencing the things and the feelings, and we stop our children from
mhm,
that as well. And we don't actually teach them to process through it. We teach them to shut it down, to
yeah,
disconnect.
yeah. Because like you said, it's uncomfortable for us. It's loud. We don't want to
And it's
deal with that.
uncomfortable, I can tell
Yeah.
you.
And I don't
But
have kids, so I can't speak to it from a day to day, but we condition our kids. We condition our kids to one of my favorite authors is Paul Ekman. He's like a human lie detector. He's like the show
mhm.
Lie to Me. That's like all his science and things.
Oh, yeah.
He studies micro expressions.
Hmm.
And but he has a book called Why Do Kids Lie? And it's basically around like you taught them to. When they came to you with the truth, you made them feel a certain way. They didn't feel safe coming to you with the truth. And so they learned how to lie because you did it. And that's the same with the emotions. Like they don't express their emotions in an XYZ way, a healthy way or this way. And it's like, well, where'd they learn that from? Because
Hmm.
they had
Hmm.
to learn it from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's us. The adults
It's
have to model the behavior that we wanna see from the children.
Uh-huh. It's us with unresolved trauma. It's us with complex trauma that's not been resolved. It's us adults being emotionally mature. I mean, all those things, right?
And I'll say on top of that, like, give yourself grace too, because, like,
Yeah.
we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know. You're doing the best
Yeah.
as best as you can with what you know and what you have control over.
Hmm.
But as you build more awareness and can step into the triggers and disrupt what the pattern has been,
Mm,
and you can expand and evolve a little bit more.
yeah. Well, what would you say to maybe somebody else who's kind of in this space of just learning about the duality, the bothness, or struggling with some of these things? What might you say to them?
I would say one visual that really helped me, this is just like for anybody who's like, what is this duality? Like,
Mm,
if you drew a six in front of you and you looked at it from your perspective, it's a six. But if you
mhm,
go on the exact opposite side of you, it's a nine. And it's like both of those perspectives are true for the people who are looking at them. And so that coming to that realization has helped me so much, because especially in, disagreements or interpersonal communication where I felt like, no, I am right in this. Like, this is how things went out. This is how things played out.
mhm,
But like on the other side of that six, that person experienced something too. And our truths meet in the middle because they're all shaped by our past beliefs, our experiences, our traumas, our, emotions. And we have different all of those things. Right.
mm,
We come into this world differently, and we experience different things. And so my truth is different than somebody else's truth, but that doesn't mean that either are wrong or not real. And so just to recognize where your feet get dug in the ground
mhm.
and you have these cognitive distortions that make it all or nothing. Like, we are so complex when you think about how many neurons are firing in our brain, when you think about just like what you can see on your body that is so complex. Like, we are very complex individuals, and there's multiplicity to everybody. Like, there's not one line of thinking within an individual, and that line of thinking can change from moment to moment, even as
Yeah.
they become more aware or get more information or just change their minds. And so just recognizing like that six can be a nine, I think
Mm.
is helpful. I might write it, I might draw it somewhere, and just, whenever I need a reminder, six or nine, like it's both
Mhm.
true.
Well, that's so good. And a visual representation, I think, can be so impactful, especially for many of us who are too in our heads, right? So seeing something visually represent that idea, oh, that's so powerful.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. It helped me. I was in so that I got that when I was in on-site. This is a great story. We were doing a lecture on this topic, right? That multiple truths can exist at the same time. And I volunteered to be kind of this, sit up there and do a
Mhm.
demonstration. And behind me was a stage, and the stage was painted black. And then behind the facilitator was just the wall to the rest of the auditorium, and it was white. And she was playing a role of my mother, and I was playing a younger version of myself. And she looks at me, man, she looks at me and she's like, Red, like, we're going back and forth. The wall is black. And I'm like, no, the wall is white. And she's like, no, the wall is most definitely black. I'm like, it's white. And she's like, Reggie, the wall is black. And this is where my trauma came in. I was like,
Mm.
all right, the wall's black. Like, my truth doesn't matter. And I grew up not owning my own voice or owning my own truth because of the dominant of my mom.
Mhm.
And so like I like conceded and was like, yeah, fuck it. The wall's black.
Mhm.
And she was like, what just happened right there? Because it surprised her, because we're role playing. She's thinking like, we're just going to go back and forth and then I'm going to make this point. But it
Yeah.
surprised us. So it was a further lesson, a further teaching point of how trauma shows up. And like in that moment, it just like brought me back. And I was like, I'm not going back and forth. Like, okay, it's
Mhm.
you think what you think, and I'm just going to go with it. And, but the whole point of it was, if either of us had the capacity to drop our ego, to drop our pride, to sit beside the other person, we
Mm.
could look at it and say, oh, from where you're sitting, the wall is white. Or from where you're sitting, the wall is black. I can see that. But can you come over here and see where I'm sitting? The wall
Mhm.
is and so that was just so eye opening that
Yeah.
multiple truths can exist at the same time. It's both.
Yeah. Even in that example of role playing, it was like 2 layers of multiplicity. It was like the role
Yeah.
play of, right, this example of black and white. We're seeing different perspectives. And then also how trauma shows up in that same moment, even when you knew it was a role play, and
Yeah.
how isn't that just the most truest example of trauma and what it shows up? Because even that, your brain knew we are role playing, it did not change the fact that you fully responded out of trauma, which of course, like anybody who's gone through that, that's how we would typically respond. So, wow, just so much, so powerful in that example.
Yeah, it was. And oof, I cried a lot that morning. I remember
Yeah.
like I'll never forget that. But it was helpful. It was so helpful. And I'm glad that I volunteered for that. Like there are no
Mm-hmm.
mistakes. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
volunteered for that for a reason. That came up like that for a reason. And so yeah, it was really good.
Oh, man. Well, Reggie, I just can't thank you enough for being here, for being so vulnerable and so willing to share so many stories of your experience and be so authentic and true, because I think every single thing that you've shared is beyond powerful. It's beyond impactful for everybody listening. I think there is not a person who's going to listen to this that won't take something impactful from it. So I just thank you for being willing to do that.
I thank you for giving me the platform and for doing what you do. I mean, it's helping a lot of people, and you create a space where it's safe to share. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Before we go, something a little lighter that I ask everybody as we kind of wrap up is, can you tell me something ridiculous or maybe a little bit relatable that you do? It could be an irrational fear, it could be a quirk, and definitely does not have to be related to today's kind of conversation.
So I get I get dizzy when I'm around horses. I don't know if anybody like feels that, but like I'm afraid of heights.
Okay.
And so, like, when I'm up, like, I get this, like, vertigo where I, like even if I wanna walk straight, I end up veering and I get wobbly. That same feeling happens around horses, and so I'm pretty sure I have a fear of horses. Uh,
So wait, like when you're on a horse or just you're just
just
near
by
them?
it, like, just
Really?
being by it, just
Oh,
the
wow.
size of it, and it's not like I've been by elephants, I've been by, like, large animals, I've petted tigers, and, like, it's just horses. I don't know
It's
what it
just
is.
horses.
It's just horses. Yeah. Horses are beautiful, and they're very, like, great for therapy. They're another form of therapy,
Yes.
equine therapy.
Yes.
But maybe I should do that. I'm gonna yeah,
That's
yeah.
too
Yeah.
talk about probably, right, like exposure therapy if you do have
Yes.
fear of horses and the other type of benefit of equine therapy.
It's gonna
Yeah.
help me. Alright, that's it. That's
Okay,
what we
you're gonna
just
have
did.
to
Thank
share
you for
back
this.
with us and
Yeah.
like say, here's my experience with equine therapy. That is interesting that I was thinking back to you talking about the body keeps score. And I'm like, right? Your
Yes.
body is telling you something about
Something.
horses. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah,
that is so interesting.
it is. I'm gonna listen what I was about to say. I'm gonna conquer that fear. Conquer. It's not
Man, I gotta
you
look at my
know?
language.
But I'm going to overcome that fear.
Mm,
I am, and I'm gonna learn to love horses and know that they love me back and learn whatever it is that is teaching me because it's
yeah.
something there.
Yeah. And even if you don't love them, right? You can be at peace with
At
them.
peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you were to tell me I had to conquer my fear of spiders, I'd be like, no, yeah, it's not, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to do exposure therapy with spiders.
No, that'd be terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, thank you so much. Just such a pleasure talking to you. So thank you for just everything that you shared today.
I appreciate you, Nikki. Thank you for having me.
I just want to say a big thank you to Reggie for being here with us today. If you want to learn more about Reggie, there are multiple ways you can get connected. First, you can follow him on Instagram at Reggie D Ford. Or if you want to learn more about his keynote talks, workshops, and consulting, you can visit him directly on his website at reggiedford.com. You can also pick up his book, Perseverance Through Severe Dysfunction, which is a brave and hope-filled read for anybody who is rewriting their story. And lastly, you can check out Reggie's podcast, Vulnerability Muscle, on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. If this episode resonated with you, it would mean the world to me if you could support the show and help it grow. First, please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts because your words help new listeners to find us. Second, share the episode with someone who might need it because that's how this community grows, through real people, real stories, and honest conversations shared from one person to another. Finally, make sure you follow the show so you never miss an episode. Just tap the little plus sign or follow button on the main show page. These really are the most impactful things that you can do for the podcast. So thank you again for listening. And this week, take some time to recognize what in your life is full of bothness. And remember, it's okay to feel all the things because so many times in life, it isn't either or, it's both.